and I was very hard on myself when things didn't perform the way I wanted them to. And then I'd be like, well, I'm an idiot. I don't want to write. Like, this is stupid. What's the point? Hello, and welcome to another episode of Goode Soil. Thank you so much for continuing to tune in and watch these videos and listen to my advice and sort of my story as I continue to unveil it as I am offering advice and talking to you. So I appreciate your support. I appreciate you for watching and for continuing to help me create a safe space for vulnerability and honesty and truth. So thank you for that. Today, I think we're going to just dive right into a question. Let's see what it is. Okay, let me unlock my phone. Okay, so, dear Goode Soil, can you provide advice for overcoming fear of failure and taking creative risks? Dear Goode Soil, can you provide advice for overcoming fear of failure and taking creative risks? So one thing that stands out to me immediately about this question is, and a lot of the questions that are asked, is the fact that I feel like the answer is in the question. So can you provide advice for overcoming fear of failure and taking creative risks? And I feel like taking creative risks is how you overcome your fear of failure. Again, I say this a lot, but a lot of the times when we are contemplating things and trying to figure out how we get over the hump of something or face something or tap into something or get more of something, it really is in the action of doing and taking a step forward that we discover the thing that we've been looking for, and we overcome the things that have been barriers to entry previous to us taking that step. So my advice here is really piggybacking off of your question, and you had the answer all along, which is taking those creative risks is really how you overcome your fear of failure. And I wish that wasn't the case. I wish you could just snap your fingers and you just were brave and everything was okay. But we really, as creatives, have to put ourselves out there and have to take those risks because it's a part of the journey of being a creative, and it's a part of the process of learning to trust yourself and to quiet the noise and to quiet everyone else's expectations and opinions of what your creativity should be and should look like. And it allows you to make your own creative decisions, stick by those decisions, trust those decisions, and sort of put those decisions out there, see what happens, and maybe it doesn't go the way you want it to go, and you can reevaluate and maybe look at it and say, okay, maybe I'll do something differently, or no, even though they didn't respond the way I wanted them to, I still believe in what I did and I still love what I created, and I'm okay with not everyone getting it and being, on board with the vision. So a lot of that is A/B testing, and you can't A/B test, you can't grow as an artist or a creative, and you can't really explore your point of view to the fullest if you are worried and afraid of taking those risks. So one thing a therapist really told me prior to this was, and it really resonated and it was truthful, was I was struggling to put out writing. I'm a writer, and I was writing different things that I was hoarding. I wasn't ever letting anyone see what I was writing because I was afraid of their feedback. I was afraid it wasn't going to be good enough or perfect enough. I was afraid they were going to reject it. All the things, all the fear was on the other side of me letting people see my work. And so I would always hoard it, and it wasn't fulfilling hoarding it. I was the only one being sort of satisfied by my work, and I wanted to share it with people. I wanted people to experience what was going on in my mind and in my heart and in my body. I wanted to move people and get them excited about things and make them laugh or whatever my writing was meant to do. And so she really asked me, why are you hoarding this? Why are you not allowing people to see this? And, we uncovered that, of course, it's my fear of rejection and my fear of feedback and my fear of not being perfect. And she was saying, you know what, just put it out anyway. And she really, this is the critical part, because a lot of times when you do have these fears of, rejection and perfectionism and everything has to be tip-top shape so that people see it and they see you behind it and they judge it positively. The core part of that was, in doing that, you can probably see me losing my train of thought as I'm talking. I'm like, come on, don't leave me, don't leave me. So I might have to go a different way because I know what I'm trying to say. I just don't remember how that sentence started, which is my ADHD cropping its beautiful head up. All that to say, her advice was, you really need to stop asking people for their feedback. Because I was asking people for their feedback for like emails I was writing. Can you look at this email? Does this email sound okay? Are there any typos? I was sending stuff to my mom all the time, from growing up in like middle school and high school. And then it led into my adult life of being like, hey, I have this essay. Can you read and proofread it? Hey, I have this thing that I want to put out. Can you read it and proofread it? And just always asking people for advice, honestly, and feedback, and people that I felt were safe, getting their perspective on things before I put it out to the masses. And you might say, Brittany, there's nothing wrong with people, giving you feedback on things before you share it. But it was coming from a place of, I can feel rejection from you first. Like, I'd rather feel the rejection from you first, and I'd rather you make this as perfect as it can be so that they don't judge me. I'm not so worried about you judging me. I just don't want them to judge me harshly, and I need it to go through you before it gets to them. And that became my sort of safety net, my crutch. It wasn't coming from a pure place. It was coming from a fear of, I need you guys to vet this and let me know that this is okay to go out. And again, there's nothing necessarily wrong with getting people in your community to give you feedback on your creative work, but there's a difference between collaborating and getting feedback to make something better, and collaborating and getting feedback so that you don't look stupid and so that you don't get embarrassed and so that you get the check and feel validated enough to submit something so that you feel like people aren't going to reject you. It's a bit more convoluted when you do it that route. And so my therapist was very much just like, you got to send it out. Anything that you're working on, I don't care if it's a poem, I don't care if it's a script, I don't care what it is, try for at least a month, just a month to start off. Not asking for anyone's feedback. You're going to take the risk of submitting your poems, submitting your work on public platforms. So for me, it was Instagram, submitting my poetry, and you're not going to ask a single soul for feedback. This is going to be 100% from you to them. And however they receive it is how they receive it. When it's good to you, it's good to go out. And at first that was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Like, it was like a drug. I was like getting the shakes, not being able to, I'm like, is this poem okay? Maybe I need to vet it. Maybe I said something wrong. Like, it really showed me how much I was relying on others to like make sure I was okay being creative, and I was approved as an artist or whatever. And so the first, couple times I just wrote something and submitted it to my audience on Instagram, I would have horrible vulnerability hangovers. And a part of that is because of what I was writing. I was writing really vulnerable stuff. So like 50% of that was me just putting myself out there in a way that people hadn't seen before. And 50% of that was, I don't know how people are going to take this. This is literally, there's no filter here. This is just Brittany, raw and unfiltered. And it was very hard for me to do that at first. But I will say, as I kept doing it, like anything I always say, as I kept practicing it and kept just working at it every time I wanted to submit poetry, it not only got easier, but it allowed me to trust myself more. I was like, no, I love this poem. Like, I wrote this thing. I love it. It feels finished to me. And I'm going to submit it. And I don't really care what you think about it. And I did care what people thought about it. Of course, I was like, how many likes did it get and all that. But that's a whole other validation issues topic we can talk about. But just the act of putting things out there and overcoming that fear of putting my work out there and being creative, and taking my creative risk of putting something out there and not knowing how people would respond to it, it just built up my tank of trust for my work, my trust in my creativity, my trust in my vision, my trust in what I like and what I think is exciting and emotional and powerful. And it just brought back so much power into my hands. Before, I was giving so much power to the audience and allowing them to dictate what I wrote and allowing them to dictate if I was pleased with what I had written and then done, and allowing them to dictate my peace and joy in the process of doing everything. I swear, I'm always like swatting at something. This time it was like a little like, when there's like a piece of something just kind of floating, it's just, it came from nowhere. It's like a piece of fuzz, and it just kind of is just like, anyway, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not crazy. But anyway, so yeah, like I said, the more you take those creative risks, that's how you overcome your fear of taking said risks. And it's going to be uncomfortable at the start, like anything. It is going to be uncomfortable. You are going to have that internal turmoil and wrestling and stress, especially if you're like me and you needed everyone who you trusted to vet everything before it was out to the public. But it's such a good exercise, and it really does just, it empowers you to be a stronger creative. You can then take even more risks and greater risks and more exciting risks and take your art and creativity or whatever you're working on to the next level, so that you can actually become the creative you want to become and be as empowered as you're meant to be. And so it's so important to do that. And I know that fear is real. And I know that fear of failure is real. I kind of forgot that the failure was the issue here. That fear of failure. So let's talk about failure. Look, failure is so subjective in creativity. It's so subjective. Like, what I deem a failure, you may deem a success. Like, you can't worry about failing in creativity. If you were able to bring something to life, if something from your brain came into the world, you are successful. Now, whether people received it the right way, or whether it blew up on social media, or you're making $1 million off of whatever you created, that's a different level of success. That is a very like earthly level of success. And that's an important success. Like, we want our creativity to inspire people and change our lives and change others' lives. Of course we do. There's nothing wrong with wanting that and aspiring to that. But understanding that first and foremost, if you created something, like, you're successful. Like, let's just at least give ourselves that much credit and pat ourselves on the back for being creative beings and creating. And once you start acknowledging that is the success, you can then have a little more momentum and have more grace for yourself when the thing doesn't necessarily do what you want it to do. Like I said, on Instagram, I'd only get like 2 or 3 likes on something that I poured my heart and soul into. And when I was looking at it from the wrong perspective, that would really bum me out and kind of stress me out. And not that looking at that is the wrong perspective, because we want we want people to like what we write. There's nothing wrong with that. We want people to receive what we put out into the world and we pour ourselves into positively. And we want it to have an impact. So there's nothing wrong with, again, wanting that. And there's nothing crazy about wanting that. I want to validate that, because that's something that wasn't validated very much in my life. And I was very hard on myself when things didn't perform the way I wanted them to. And then I'd be like, well, I'm an idiot. I don't want to write. Like, this is stupid. What's the point? Blah, blah, blah. Like, no, there's something, I understand why that's important, and that is important. But I think it's also important to just shift your perspective less on that outcome and more on the fact that you created and you enjoyed the process and you were doing the thing that made you feel like you. That is the real success. So I want us to put the onus on that part of it. And then as we move to the next levels, have more grace for ourselves when it doesn't do the thing we wanted it to, but not allow it to discourage us from from continuing to create and take those risks. So failure is a part of it. Failure, again, is different for everyone. Some people think certain things are successes and things are failures. So it's really about the fact that you created this thing that you love, hopefully, and that you poured yourself into, just remembering that is the real success. And everything else just isn't really real. Like, failure isn't really real. So your fear of failure and our fear of failure, when we're really thinking about it, it's not really real. What's real is what we created. What's real is the process we went through to create it. What's real is the joy that we felt and the passion that we felt and the pursuance of that passion. That is what's real. That is what's going to last longer than this failure that may be just a blip. So I think when we remember that, we take the power from the fear and we put it in its rightful place, which is like below the passion, below the joy, below the excitement. And again, just taking those risks, taking action on your creativity is how you overcome. It's how you literally bridge the gap from here to there. It's literally, I just envision someone walking over step by step by step over the chasm of fear until they get to the other side. And the other side may be you being a more creative risk taker, you thinking bigger about your creativity and your visions and executing on new levels and inspiring others to execute. So that's my advice on how to overcome that fear. It's, as everything, it is normal. It's a normal part of the creative journey. And it is, it can be really crippling and hard to overcome. And it can easily make us feel alone and like we're the only ones experiencing it. But you're not alone. You're not the only one experiencing it. There are so many creatives who go through this struggle all the time. Even when you do take those steps, you still feel the fear because now you're on a different level and there's new fear and new eyeballs on you and new, especially with social media, it's like, can I say this? Can I do this? It gets a little more complicated. So the fear does not make you crazy. The sort of emotions and fear that comes with taking those risks at first don't make you crazy. Those are normal too. And it's about giving yourself grace and remembering your why and remembering your love and the reason why you are creative and the reason why you love creating the things you create. That's the real success. That's where it all really stems from. So remembering that, you're doing fine. You're doing good. I'm excited to see what you create. Keep trying, keep going. You're not alone. And thank you for this question. This was a great question. And it's something that I think about often and have to constantly overcome and renew in my own life. So I feel you. And I'm sure other people feel you as well. So thank you for this question. Thank you all for listening and have a great day. And remember, you are good soil. Yes, yes, yes. All right, bye. Thank you for watching another episode of Good Soil. If you liked this video, be sure to share it with friends and family because we could all use a little reminding that we are good soil. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and follow us on Instagram and TikTok. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.